And it's Quick Art Talk time, episode 33. And today, you are witnessing a different setup. Let me take a sip of water. You are here seeing one of my working spaces, quite chaotic. Yeah, there is a Panther tank. There is a piece of my water pump from the car. And in the background, you see a Lego tiger. Yeah, random stuff, reference, right? But the main focal point today is this old sketchbook, and the intention of this episode today is to have like a look in the past, see, a little bit of my journey, part of my journey, and looking back at it, showcasing what I've been going through, because this sketchbook here is something that I started all the way back in 2014. You can definitely see that it has been weathered by the tooth of time, slowly, being exposed to its environment, decaying in its environment, even though I'm really trying my best to protect it, of course. But yeah, it's like here, this stuff is peeling off, man. Holy shit. Okay, focal point sticker, also like weathered down. Used to say focal point school here, but it all got, because I've been traveling with this, I was going with it to trips, I was using it when I was not able to work on my laptop or computer. And of course, I like picking up pen and paper because I really believe, and that's a topic maybe for a different time, I really believe that it just, it always is a better feeling. There is something about that physical aspect when you pick up pen and paper, when you smell the markers, when you feel the real texture of the paper. Physicality, right? I think a very important aspect now that we are moving into our interesting future. Let's start with page 1, titled Sketches, my name. And this is my friend's sketch, Alfonso Della Torre. If you're watching this, cheers to you, man. Hope you're doing well. He's amazing at doing all kinds of creature designs in 3D, sculpting it. A very skillful guy, really. First couple of pages are like pencil, exploring, some anatomy sketches, because this was about. Here I remember I bought this sketchbook in 2014. At work, I was not doing any character stuff. Back when I was working at EA Criterion, I was doing mostly environments, maybe some interiors, but I didn't work on characters. And because I always wanted to be kind of versatile, I would explore a different theme. I'm also doodling around, testing out the new marker set that I got from Copic back then, which I'm still using today. All right, here it is. There you go. Look at that. Still the same set. I'm just sometimes refilling it because they are refillable. Don't throw them away. When they become dry, you can refuel them, just so you know, all right? We can talk about the tools which I use traditionally, maybe some other episode. Let's go through, because you can see here that I'm not using much confidence. I'm sketching around, and later this sketchbook evolved into something more catered to my hardware background and my passion for background. And since then I've been using ink and marker only. Here, this is still pencil, right? This was done during a vacation in Poland. Inspired by the Polish landscapes, I started to, just making doodles, minus the mountains. Poland doesn't have much mountains, but it has beautiful lakes, rivers, forests. And I was basically inspired by nature. I added in the ruins as well. All right. So yeah, sometimes I make a whole series of these landscapes. Then I drop it off, go into something completely different. Very noisy looking planes. I've been doing them for a while. By the way, the timestamp between this one is around 1 year. This one was already done when I was back in the Netherlands, in my home country, when I got my job at Triumph Studios. I was doing these kinds of stuff after work because, I was only working 8 hours a day. So that's not enough, of course, right? Workaholic. I am not happy with these ones, but I am very much like, I'm not happy by the output, but I'm happy that I was doing these sketches, because it teaches you a lot. I'm learning on the go. And even though I've been mostly learning at my own mistakes, certain learning curves really took me a while. Now at school, at Focal Point School, I am able to communicate this kind of stuff to my students and give them basically shortcuts so that they can learn from my mistakes, from Darek's mistakes. So they won't have to go through the long road that we did, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, right? Design philosophy is hard. Design is not easy. And yeah, we are focusing on to make you stand out, right? No matter what your tools are, because we cover everything, 2D, 3D. Sometimes we will, also do traditional sketches on the fly at school. The design is what matters the most, right? So yeah, plain sketches, too much detail, non-consistent, right? Would you like me to go in depth in one of these? Why they suck, or maybe what is also good about them? Because there are certain points that are good, but overall, I don't like them anymore. Yeah? Too much detail. And the shapes are not popping out well. The detail distribution is inconsistent, right? And everything has its own design language. So like here we see a part, let me take something to point with. There you go. Here we see an air intake part. And then this is also an air intake part, but it carries a completely different design language than this one, right? So this is conflicting, doesn't read well. Yeah, it's another bad attempt, right? Some character sketching. This one was actually done for work when I was like thinking about what to do the next day, because I was working on a faction, which was all about scavenging cybernetics and parts to make their own soldiers out of it. The faction was basically called the Assembly back then, and they were specializing in scavenging the fields, the battlefields, and making something useful out of scrap. But it takes place into the far future, so you see a lot of kind of sci-fi parts, some asymmetry to make it look irregular, but still kind of humanoid, right? Unfinished stuff. Here I would say we see a improvement a little bit, right? Especially again when you compare it to the noisy crafts that I have here, right? These carry better design consistency, better detail distribution. However, when I'm looking at it with a critical eye, there are still a lot of problems. First of all, I am trying to distinguish here, the design elements from one another, like what are the armored body pieces, what are the mechanical moving parts. So that is somewhat successful. But then, the whole weight distribution, look at the size of this cannon versus the small pivot cylindrical points, which are attaching the leg to the crotch. I would also imagine that the animation will be almost impossible. The leg here is unable to move because it has like the access points from the leg to the crotch. They are distributed across the whole length of the leg. So, how does the leg move, right? So this is kind of like also the feedback that we would give to, one of our kind of like students, but of course more in depth, more on point here. I just have a limited amount of time, but it's fun to look at it back and then like, what was I thinking, right? That I thought that I did an all right job. Whereas when I'm looking here at it like almost 10 years later, it's like, man, it's good that I kept drawing and designing, right? Because if I would be stagnant, and if my skill level would stop here, I don't know, right? Sometimes I just used to like doodle, and I still do that, but I'm just talking about, this sketchbook. This has no real context. Maybe this tank over here, slightly connected to the Command & Conquer universe, but then some space wizard. I don't know. just draw sometimes, right? Just draw. Some fighter shooting off a rocket, and then a buggy, right? Don't know if the shapes are visible here well, because again, no marker means that it can get too noisy very quickly. This one is for my personal project, Project 1952, still ongoing. Yes, I started this project all the way in 2014. I'm working on it on and off. Alternate setting of the Second World War, but it doesn't mean that we won't have vehicles that also existed in real life, right? So this right here is the rear view of the T-34. Not sure if I want to talk about this one, holy shit. Yeah, some kind of shark design. I should have really studied the animal first, making maybe some study sketches of the animal before making an attempt of designing one myself, right? Something that we definitely also do in class. Before we jump into a certain subject matter, we study an airplane before we move into, you know, the interior design. Before we design, basically, you need to build up a strong understanding of the real world. Unfinished stuff, random phases again, mostly connected to, this one is definitely like Terminator stuff, Terminator inspired stuff, right? Kind of cyberpunk vibes, right? And Blade Runner. You remember that scene with the cigarette, with the woman? She was like smoking and the backlight. Yeah, but here like some mechanical parts exposed. Yeah. More faces. Some futuristic pharaoh. I really have no idea. Like, I remember doing this and I was like thinking something about like Egypt, maybe like what if the civilization would like last and last and last, and you know, maybe they will have something like this. I don't know. This is some kind of sci-fi alien character design, right? Definitely Star Wars inspired, right? So what I mean by alternative designs is that it carries the overall shape, language, and essence of the original, but here I was playing around with the subdivisional language. Too noisy now. I liked it back then. Now I don't like it anymore. Tanks. I have better tanks. So this one is not marked in, not markered in. There is no value. Here, you know, the marker is bleeding through the other side. So let's talk more about this one, right? This one is, I think, nicer. Here you see that I redid the kind of Cleopatra-like sci-fi character from this page, because I kind of like the idea. And then I made another one, and you can see that there is a little bit of simplification going on in this design, right? And the markers are helping the shapes pop as well. There is definitely more breathing space between the details. And here we have a solid piece of fan art. You should definitely check the original design by Fang Zhu. He made a lot of designs for Command & Conquer 3. This one here is the Nod Scorpion tank. And you know what? I'll just show the original one. Give me 1 minute. Instead of talking, right? Can definitely showcase what we are talking about so that you have more context. Yeah, so let's move, drop. Right, this is the original. So what I like about this design, what I always liked about this design, is that it's a very clever idea for a futuristic light tank. It has like this shell that consists of the whole body, and this shell can rotate in between those tracks. In my case, it's on these kind of cylinder propulsion kind of stuff. The tank is very maneuverable, so it can fluently rotate with its tracks as well. And then it has a nice asymmetry aspect where you have, you know, it's a not conventional layout of a tank, but it still kind of makes sense. It also reminds me kind of a crab which gives that armored look, and the slopiness of it gives an agile look at the same time. Cannon, weapon on one side, vision slits on the other one. Yeah, what can I say? Awesome stuff. And of course, I've been a fan of Feng Zhu. I think a lot of people are, right? One of the legends, right? So yeah. And Command & Conquer 3 and Tiberian Sun are definitely one of my favorite games, especially Tiberian Sun, which in my opinion is one of the best games, but I might be biased, right? It's, yeah. I would say that thanks to Tiberian Sun, I became a concept artist, but that's a story for another time, maybe. Here we see, yeah, this one I remember. I made 2 jet fighters with kind of the same function, but their differences should be depicted through the respective faction they belong to. So USA, Russia, and then you can see this one is definitely more agile, kind of F-35, but kind of silly, you know, but still more aggressive, more angular shapes, more edges, more kind of triangle, aggressive looking shapes. This one, more bulky, more rounded shapes. Very much in line what the Soviet design language has been portraying throughout the Cold War and throughout the Second World War as well. All right. This is another. So you see, sometimes I'm kind of like dial back with my skill. I am not happy with this one at all. Too many details, too many air intakes again. Detail doesn't make sense. It's all over the place. Different design languages that are conflicting with one another. Yeah, if you want to know in detail what I mean by all these terms that I'm throwing, we can always like feedback my own work, or even send in maybe your own work, or I can go through one of our students' work if they are okay with it. We can talk about that as well. What I like about this design only now is that it's a top-down view. So this gives us a lot of visual information when we are sketching from this perspective in the industry, right? Of course, right now we will use also 3D whenever we have a little bit more time, or some people even start in 3D. But the benefit of this one here, if you're sketching around, exploring your idea, is that we have here a view that is very informative. It gives us a view of how it looks like from the top. We have a view of how it looks at the front and the side, right? This view over here, for example, these sketches, here we only see the front and the side. We don't necessarily see the top part of this plane. So this is a limited amount of information, right? The benefit, however, of this one is that it most of the time looks cooler, because most vehicles are viewed from this angle in real life. Think of cars and also like jet fighters and airplanes. And it's also easier to do because you don't have to think that much in 3D, right? Here I did some characters for a fantasy game for a friend of mine back in the day when I was working on Hitman at Sumo Digital in the UK. So I had this friend, he was also working for Sumo Digital, but in a different team. And he was making a game about, knights fighting each other in some kind of arena. By the way, I don't know if that game, succeeded. So yeah, we lost touch, unfortunately. Life, some orc-inspired character. So yeah, you can notice that I don't have any pointers today. So yeah, I'm experimenting here again with a new format. Let me know if this is something you would like to see more often. I have many more sketchbooks, by the way. It's like, I have another one laying here, it's another one. I have tons to show. If you want, we can flip. If you want, you can flip through it, right? So some kind of mercenary character. Forgive my anatomy skills. This has been a while ago. Also, I don't specialize in characters, but I sometimes need to. And I need to shine with the confidence because I like to be versatile. And in the end, shapes are shapes. In the end, design philosophy is design philosophy. We teach our students to see everything as one, no matter if it's a hardware piece or some kind of sci-fi environment that you do for the advanced environment design class with Darek, for example, all right? This one definitely inspired by the Teutonic Knight Order, right? This one here has the Polish eagle. Yeah, looks familiar, right? Especially for Polish people, I guess. And yeah, here another kind of, yeah, here the face looks weird, right? I don't know. I did my best. Another one, kind of experimenting with layers of cloth and then armor on top of it, right? Yeah. So this is some sci-fi robot again. So from fantasy switched over to, you know, sci-fi. Yeah. Don't have much to tell about this one. I just did this one randomly. I think I was inspired by what I saw back then. Like, I don't know if you guys know the concept artist Nivan Chantara, one of my favorite concept artists as well. He was like popping and publishing his stuff. You know, I got inspired after work because he makes a lot of kind of these robotic characters. You should check it out, Nivan Chantara. Here, submarines. I like submarines a lot. They have a smooth, beautiful design language, and there's tons of detail to kind of, you know, play around with. Again, I'm not happy with the result, but the overall shapes are interesting. But the design consistency is like, this is conflicting with this, right? I'm trying too much. I'm pushing it too much here, right? So if I would redo this, the result will definitely be different, right? Shapes need to listen to each other. Otherwise, it just becomes noise. And then you're just, you know, making shapes, trying to be cool just for the sake of being cool. So I think this one, yeah, looks good, but there is tons of improvement to go with because, well, this one is markered in, so there is good value going on, right? The shapes are popping out well, but again, the design language, the panel lines, the riveting, and then conflicting detail again. So here there is a fin, and then here is a fin as well. This fin has tons of detail. This fin has almost no detail. Stuff like that now really annoys me. But that's good, you know, because you see your progress. And the reason why I'm looking back at it, again, the intention is to show you and share with you, of course, my journey a little bit. But it's also a learning experience for me as well, because now I can see what I'm not looking usually through my works like this. So it's a good way for myself as well to remind myself of what has been done and what my skill level was back in the day and how it developed. This is the baseline soldier of my personal project IP 1952. This is the Panzer Grenadier for the German faction, because there also will be the Russians and the Polish resistance, 3 factions. Some fallout. War never changes. Alternative design of the power armor helmet. I kind of liked it back in the day. Now that I'm looking at it, it still feels a little bit overcomplicated. I like what I kind of did with the chunky bits over here around the eye slits, but certain details are just too much, man. Like, imagine dust or something get trapped in between here. It's very complex, not subject for easy manufacturing. So if I would redesign this, I would probably keep the essence of this element because it's cool, but then I would smoothen out the design a little bit more, right? Okay, let's do one more because we're hitting here the 25-minute mark. And, well, look at this. We got halfway through. If you're interested, we can do, you know, the rest of it next time. Here we can see some kind of spaceship. And sometimes I really just like to sit down, explore, chase the shapes that are like sometimes kind of chasing me. And if I don't put it on paper, then I always wonder, okay, how will it look if I actually put it on the canvas? And I know that starting is sometimes the hardest thing, but once you sit down, you just go into the zone, you know, even if you tell yourself, let's just sit down and sketch for 5 minutes, it's usually not 5 minutes. So just tell yourself, hey, I'm just gonna work for 5 to 10 minutes, and you'll see time will just start flying by, and then you'll end up doing more than you intended. So here again, a design exercise more. Of course, I'm thinking here, you know, what kind of craft it would be. Would it go through space? What kind of materials is it using, right? I'm utilizing kind of the rudimentary kind of design features it needs to come across realistic, like every design should be doing. But again, there are a lot of shortcomings. The design language is getting there, but still not what I would find up to standards if I would be designing today. So yeah, let's go. Maybe there is more in this one, definitely. And yeah, if you guys want, we can do the rest next time. But for now, I would like to thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed as always. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I wish you a very creative journey as well, no matter what you end up doing, you know, teaching art on your own, join a school like Focal Point School or any other school. Hey, it's your decision, right? It's your decision. Either whatever you end up doing, if you are into art, concept art, it's always good to keep moving forward through good times, through bad times, right? The decision is yours. Thank you again, guys, for watching. See you guys next time.